Greetings, everyone. Happy Sunday to all of you who are watching us. Welcome back to the Always a Queen, the Metamorphosis platform, wherever you happen to be watching, whether you're watching on our Facebook page, our YouTube page, our Twitter, or our Instagram page. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here. We are also live on my own personal Facebook page. So we're live in several places right now. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Therese Millett Joseph, and I am the creator of the Always a Queen, the Metamorphosis platform. Just in case there's anyone who is here for the very first time, I created this platform some years ago because I am passionate about empowering women, especially Black women. I live to empower us. And this is why I created this platform. I do a podcast every 2 weeks, and we talk about mental health issues, personal development issues, anything that helps the queens to live a more empowered, healthy, functional, elevated life. That is what we are about here. So if you're interested in this kind of content, follow, like, and subscribe because I do this every 2 weeks. And also, you're going to get daily motivational posts and content, reels, posts, videos, you name it. This is what we are here to do. Now, as you can see, I'm not here by myself today. I brought one of my sister queens with me. Keisha, Miss Keisha is here, and Miss Keisha is also into the empowerment of women, which is why she's helping me do my thing here today. So I'm going to give her a chance to introduce herself and to tell you about her platform, because she also has a platform that she is doing some mighty, mighty work on. And so I want her to tell you a little bit about who she is, what she does, and then we're going to jump right into this conversation. Okay, let's hear from you, Keisha.
Thanks, Queen. Hello, everyone. I hope you're able to hear me clearly and loudly. I'm so happy to be a guest on your podcast this evening. It's always a pleasure whenever we link up and whenever we come together. So, my platform is mainly dedicated to helping women live better lives through healing their wounds naturally. And, I wouldn't necessarily describe what I do as empowerment, but more to the point of helping women to recognize the power that they innately have and to step
Mm.
into it. So it's a way of encouraging them, giving them the confidence to literally be what they already are.
I love that. I love that. We're already powerful. You're just giving them a gentle reminder to tap
Yes,
into the power. I love it.
exactly. Exactly.
Yes, absolutely love it. And thank you for being here. We love when you come on, because when you come on, girl, you be hitting us with the big facts and leaving us grabbing our pearls. So we love having you here. Thank you for taking the time to be with us here this afternoon. Greetings, Charmaine. I see you in the chat section. You're ready. You're ready for the conversation. Thank you for being here. Um, so today we're gonna be tackling a very, very, I'm going to say, rarely discussed topic. I actually cannot recall ever hearing a podcast about this topic anywhere. I'm sure people do have podcasts about it. I'm sure somebody somewhere is talking about it. I just haven't heard them. So let's talk about it. We're going to be discussing the psychology of the Madonna-Whore complex. And I had a lot of people inbox me saying, "What is this?" They had literally never heard of it. They didn't know it was a thing. And so
Really?
that is where I want. Yeah, they never, yeah, people were like, "What is this?" I'm like, Google it. It's a thing. I promise you, I did not make it up. And so Yeah, people were like, I've never heard of this before. I did not know that this was a psychological phenomenon. And oh my goodness, it's probably happening to me and I'm not even aware. And I'm like, this is why we are here, sis. This is what the platform is for,
Mhm.
is to give you the tea so you know
Yeah,
what's going on.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So I want us to start the conversation by first just talking about or defining specifically what the Madonna whore complex is. What exactly is it? You know, we can both share, you know, what our personal definitions of it are, but I will let you take the lead on this. How would you define the Madonna whore complex?
Well, before I get into the my definition and my understanding of it, I will say to the point of it not being discussed, I think what is happening with a lot of these platforms and a lot of these gender based discussions is that people are talking about perhaps elements of the same thing, but we have a terrible habit of leaving the conversation on a very surface level rather than getting to the root cause of some of the psychology, some of the habits, some of the behaviors. You know, a lot of what we're dealing with now, the modern issues that we're dealing with now, are as a result of philosophies, religions, and financial setups that
Mhm.
have been in place for hundreds and hundreds of years. So perhaps people may have been discussing it and they're unaware. So I will give them that grace because the Madonna horror complex is simply the it's like a psychological turmoil that many heterosexual men find themselves facing when they are unable to respect the woman that they find sexually attractive,
Mhm.
and they are unable to be sexually attracted to the woman that they love. So this is how the Madonna whore comes in. The Madonna, which represents someone who is motherly, saintly, virginal, thinking of
Mhm.
like the Mary in the Bible, mother of Christ. You know, she's all things virtuous and pure, and you love her almost as though you would love your mother. When you love a woman in the way you love your mother, then it becomes difficult for a lot of men to know to then see that same woman in a sexual light. Because
Mhm.
for many men, the act of sex is something that is degrading. That is when they get their peak pleasure. And of course, you know, we'll discuss this later how this came to be. But for many men, sex is something that is most enjoyable when it is the most degrading, when they feel like they're in a position of power, control. They can get you to do things, they can get you to come out of character, be almost like a sexual servant. And it's impossible for you to love a woman and also have her play that role. So I believe the term was first coined by Sigmund Freud
Yep. Yep.
in the early 1900s. Now, these Europeans have a way of using the word, overusing the word invent. It can't be that Freud invented the concept. We must say that Freud was an astute observer. He was simply observing the phenomenon that exists among Western heterosexual men and providing
Yep.
clarity and an explanation for why it seemed as though the women that men were most sexually drawn to were the women that they would unalive, that they would disrespect, treat poorly. We're talking prostitutes, so-called side chicks, concubines, and the woman that they would want to marry and praise are the women that don't necessarily fulfill their sexual desire.
Mhm.
And so I think for him, this evolved out of what he also called an Oedipus complex, which is the sexual attraction or romantic love that young boys form with their mother during the breastfeeding, nurturing phase. The healthy male grows out of this. This is according to Freud. The healthy male grows out of this. But there's a particular psychosis where some men don't. And so they seek wives that remind them of their mother. And then they find themselves having the Madonna-Whore complex because the mother that they have married and that they love and that reminds them of their mother, they don't want to have sex with her.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
we can see where this now has evolved into the modern day kind of slang where people say, or even men and women say, they want a lady in the streets but a bitch in the bedroom. Because now there is kind of like a coming to terms with the needs and saying, look, I need both. And we can
Right.
discuss how damaging that can
Yeah,
be
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
relationships.
absolutely. I think you broke it down. I think you broke it down perfectly. In a nutshell, it is, and I want to make sure that we underscore that this Madonna whore complex that we are discussing here today. It's important that we underscore that it is being perpetuated by heterosexual men. Okay?
Yes,
So
yes,
we have to make sure we're talking about heterosexual cisgender males, men
yes,
who are having sex with women. So
yes,
this complex does not necessarily apply if you are not a male who is sexually attracted to a woman. So I think
right.
it's important for us to underscore that when we are having this discussion. And essentially, as you said, it is a complex in which you find these men dividing women into two categories. Like there is no gray area in their minds. That is essentially what the complex does. It creates a black and a white category in their minds, in which there is the Madonna, who is a woman who is pure and virtuous and nurturing and motherly and a virgin, hopefully, because we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. And then the other category is who we are referring to as the whore, and that is the woman that is deemed to be overly sexual, and she's manipulative and she's promiscuous. She's too sexy, but also that's the woman that he wants to sleep with, right? So there's the woman that he wants to be sexually involved with, but there's also the woman that he wants to take home to his mother, the one he wants to marry, the one he wants to become the mother of his children, the one he wants in his house. And so the Madonna whore complex is essentially a conflicted heterosexual cisgender man walking around out here in these streets attempting to have healthy functional relationships with women, but cannot decide whether he wants the Madonna or the whore. That basically is the nutshell version of it. It's a construct of male psychology, which is why we need to have more conversations about male psychology. We talk a lot
Absolutely,
about male
absolutely.
psychology, but not
Because
enough
you
about
see,
male psychology.
the danger with that, is that they are chasing an elusive dream that can never materialize. So even for men who will say, "Oh, what's the big deal? I can have both. I can have my wife and I can have my concubine or my side chick or whatever." The problem with the psychosis at the root of it is that it says that a woman is defiled once she's touched by a man. That's why virginity is so important.
Hmm.
Once you don't lose your value, even if you listen to these red pill podcasters and these manosphere guys, a woman loses her value, even if it's just a little bit, when she comes in contact sexually with a male, because the ultimate, most valued, precious woman is a virgin.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
by logic, the minute you take that virgin home and bring her in your bed, you have defiled her. And that is why it's still difficult for them to maintain healthy relationships, because they must get over that hurdle of seeing that sexuality, a sexually free, liberated woman, is a whore. They have to get over that. Because if they don't, then even your wife, you start to view your wife as a thing that is dirty. I've heard cases of men who have abused their women, men who are like pastors, when the women during a sexual act may have gone overboard, may have shown that she liked it a little bit too much, may have screamed an expletive, F me or whatever. And they're like, wait a minute, because you're not supposed to enjoy it too much.
Right.
No,
Yes.
because you're my wife. So it's sad in a way, because it's a psychological hurdle, as we say, that they must overcome if they're going to have healthy relationships with women. Because part of the problem is, even if you say you have a lady in the street and a freak in the bed, a lot of these men, they start to question, and who else is she a freak in the bed to? You know, this girl is a con artist, this girl is a trickster. And that's how a lot of
Yes.
women get abused, even just by him looking at you and say, wait, look how she's sexy. She must be, you know, it's an ego problem, it's a self-esteem problem. And this is why we say patriarchy and these systems are hurtful and harmful to men,
Yeah.
because it really defiles the way they should see healthy sexual interaction between the opposite gender.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. There is definitely a link between this complex, this Madonna whore complex, and Western patriarchal oppressive culture.
Of course.
Um, because this is where the power imbalance that you just spoke about comes in. It is and this is also a Freudian theory. Freud came up with several theories as to where he believed this complex could be coming from, and one of them was connected to the fact that he at the time existed in a society where it was run by men. The men
Yeah.
were in charge. The women were to be seen and not heard. The women, did not have the same rights. You can't open a bank account unless your husband gives you permission. You cannot work unless your husband gives you permission. You cannot vote. There are so many things that you cannot do. There was an absolute power imbalance, and that gave I guess it created a space. It created a space for complexes like this to develop. And then of course there are the biological links as well. The fact that it's the woman who is giving birth to the children. And so how do I know for sure that the child that you are giving birth to is my child if you are so sexual, and that the possibility exists that you could have had sex with somebody other than me, even if it was before you met me? The fact that you were with somebody other than me places in question the possibility that your babies may not be mine. So it's like that's I think this is probably where the phrase mommy's baby, daddy's maybe comes from. you know and so all of these things kind of they created a space for men to develop these types of pathologies. And then of course, even though this was the early 1900s, look at us here in 2024 still having these conversations. Why are we still having this conversation in 2024?
Well, part of the reason why we have to have these conversations in 2024 is because a lot has remained the same. In Jamaica to this day, 2024, you still can't rape your wife. Yeah, you
No.
can't be charged for rape of your wife. That's still on the books. I mean, granted, they're working on changing the law, but the fact is, laws are very representative of cultural values of our history, how we see each other. And the fact is, it's unheard of. Most men, if you were to ask them about raping your wife, they would think that you're crazy because your wife is yours. You are entitled to her body when you want, how you want, forever.
Mm.
And, to the point of the patriarchal system, one of the worst things that it does, it creates a deep insecurity within men. A deep insecurity. It's like a bottomless well that can't be quenched, it can't be filled. Because when you, just like what you said, if you have something, a system where children lineage are traced through men, men don't give birth, which is why our ancestors, our African ancestors, in their wisdom, didn't waste time on that. Children were traced to the mother. In order for you to be on the throne, to be king or whatever, you had to be the son or the child of a particular woman. She had to be in line in the lineage, because that's the only way to guarantee that you are in fact part of that lineage. Patriarchy, which is a representation of male Western fear of the woman, now comes to say, no, 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 no. The woman, every man is entitled to a woman. A woman is your chattel, she's your property, she's to be part of your nuclear family, under which there is a hierarchy: God, man, woman, child. And sometimes the woman and the child are on the same level. And
Mm.
it creates a deep insecurity within men because they have been assigned a role which they are incompetent to fulfill. They can't fulfill that role. And so they're constantly suspicious of the woman. Am I enough for her? Is she doing this with someone else? Um, is this my child? Right? It's an unnatural system that they have created. But men, because they have it's almost like colorism and white supremacy. Light skinned people, they get a touch of privilege. They don't want to completely abolish the system. It's the same with men, black men in particular. It gives them a taste of superiority. So even though it's not benefiting them, even though they're suffering under it, I think 1 in 3 women in Jamaica, men in Jamaica, have been reported as having jackets for their children. In Jamaica, a jacket is a child that is you think is yours, but is not yours, and it's rampant in Jamaica, right?
Hmm.
Because
Not just
because
in Jamaica, sis.
well, yes, and you see, again, going back to our roots, this would not have been a problem if children were traced through the mother. That's the only sensible, logical, scientific way to determine a child's lineage. You can't guarantee that it's a man's child. So a lot of this has to be understood in terms of history, in terms of religion, and in terms of Western domination and white supremacy.
Yeah. And can we talk about how this is the unspoken permission that men receive through social programming and cultural programming, the unspoken permission to be promiscuous themselves, while the woman does not have that permission, right? And maybe we should not even use the word promiscuous. Let's talk let's not say that. Let's refer to it as being sexually liberated, right? um it is an unspoken permission that is granted to the male to be as sexually liberated as he chooses to be, to have children with as many women as he chooses to, while the woman, however, cannot be granted that privilege. That because that would become problematic for him, because he needs the security. His security blanket, his security blanket is the knowledge that you are not sleeping with anybody but him, right? But you do
Yeah.
not require that security blanket because you know that once you give birth, that is your child. You see how it's an unspoken permission for him to go out and sow his royal oats here, there, and everywhere, while the woman, and is of course going to be viewed as the whore.
Well,
If
it's
she
a
were
it's
to
a
do the
fool's
same.
game. It's a very
Mhm.
fool. It's a foolish game because If all the women are to be virginal for all the men, then who's gonna be the whore? Who's going to be the whore? Because the woman that you are experiencing all your fantasies and your freaky desires with, she's somebody's wife. She's somebody's daughter. She might be the young girl who is presented to marry your son, who is pretending to be a virgin but have had nights of passion and pleasure with men like you. So it's like shitting where you eat. You're going around defiling women as of right, but you still want women to be pure, not jaded, feminine, loyal. It doesn't work that way. You can't cut down the forest, you can't cut down the trees and expect to have food. You see? So men are being misled into thinking that their actions don't have consequence, and or that the consequence it has is solely for women, and that's simply not true. The consequence is very much going to be on them, you know. And many people will bring the argument that men are naturally polygamous, and polygamy is something that men, especially African men, men of African ancestry, should have the right to practice. Part of the problem is you can't have both. You can't have polygamy under an oppressive system. You can't have polygamy under patriarchy. And that is where they go wrong. I don't support polygamy under a system where the woman is not free. The woman should be free to choose. The woman should not have restrictions in terms of her resources. Because where resources are plentiful, where women feel empowered to select, choose, and refuse, then the idea of a polygamous relationship is healthy, because it's something that women can get together and say, Therese, I would like you to be my sister wife. And it becomes a more harmonious, enjoyable, healthy environment for the community and for the children. But what we have now is men saying, me are the done, man a man, top man, boss man, pimp, and you are beneath me. Polygamy will never work. It will always be toxic under patriarchy. But again, men don't want to let go of the little crumbs of power that they think patriarchy is giving them. Whereas we could all live in harmony. I don't know many women who naturally crave to have sex with dozens of men every year. Most women are not like that. Most women would want to tend to their families, their creative outlets, their garden, the farming, whatever. Most women don't necessarily want to have multiple men. And there are many women who would be happy with polygamous relationships as long as they are respectful, and again doesn't come with this tyrannical view of what a woman should and should not be, and also the view where women are devalued to their bodies. So if every 5 years you're going to be replaced with a younger, newer wife, what's the point? That can't be the route to nation building. That's a route to building men's egos, and nobody wants that.
Right. Yeah. Um, while we're talking about patriarchal cultures and how a polygamous lifestyle really just does not align with that. I think it's important to also speak to the fact that within the patriarchal culture and mindset, and just these schools of thought are advancing the idea that females are mainly necessary for the purpose of reproduction, for the survival of the species, essentially. And so it is relegating the females to what I have heard people refer to as her place. And where is her place? Her place is in the home, barefoot and pregnant, by the stove, cooking the food, scrubbing the floors, taking care of the husband. Yeah, I mean, seriously speaking, right? That is where this discussion has to go. Because if you are stripping me of all power, if you're stripping me of autonomy, if you're stripping me of any choice with regards to my relationships, what my home life will look like, who I will live with, who I will marry, who I will share my man with, if you're stripping me of all of that, um, then basically what you are reducing me to is I'm just a breeder, right? That's what I have become.
Yeah, you see, the sad truth of it, well, I don't know if it's sad, it's just the truth. The reality, the reality in nature for the male, and we're talking about the male species across the board. The reality is that it's a cold world. It's a world where you have to prove your worth, you have to assert dominance over other males. That is what the natural um, reality is for the male species. We see it with lions, we see it with bees. Men have to fight for dominance and fight for resources and fight for access to the female. Now, the human male decide that they don't want males to fight. They don't want males to fight because under capitalism, a few males want to control all the resources. And where that takes place, you're going to have complete chaos and violence in the world because the males are going to start to attack those few males. So what they did, what they gave them, instead of resources, they gave them a woman. So they came up with a nuclear family and they came up with religion. So you're not going to have the resources that we, the few percent, have. And you're not going to fight us for it either, because that's the nature of the male. What you're going to do, you're going to feel content in your position as head of household. Because the nuclear family is not really the most healthy situation for a woman to exist in. Because under a nuclear family structure, she doesn't have the support, the communal support of other women to help raise a child. She doesn't have the protection of her family in case her husband becomes abusive. She is literally relegated to the position of an indentured servant to have children, cook meals, clean, and provide sex on demand. But this is not something that is of nature. This is a construct. This is a Western patriarchal construct that was created in order to keep capitalism functioning. It's the only way. Because if men were to exist in their true nature, they would have to, it would be the fittest of the fit. Women don't have to compete because there's always going to be a male that desires us, that wants to be with us. The very fact that you are a woman and you have the ability to give birth and you are creatively nurturing, just that alone, makes you valuable in nature. So you have to create an unnatural system where you convince the woman that her value is not innate. Her value is attached to her ability to get and keep a man. And how do you keep him? You have to become his servant. You have to prove your worth by bringing children forth every year, every 2 years, keeping the house spotless, keeping him sexually satisfied.
Make
You
sure
must
you have
forever look young. You can't show signs of natural aging. Yes, you must be virtuous. You must deny yourself your own sexual desires or pretend to have sexual desires when you don't, right? That is not a natural system. And then they give you the Bible, the story of Eve. They tell you that you're cursed because you are a woman. You are to submit to this man who is naturally superior to you. That doesn't exist anywhere in nature. The lion cubs don't follow the male. If the lion is the king of the jungle, his mother taught him how to be a king because she teaches the cubs how to hunt, how to roar, all of that. The males fight it out with each other. Lion males, they fight it out, fight. They have to fight to survive, right? And that is the reality of the male. But now we are in a very unnatural position. Now we need philosophy and we need religion to pump men up and push and keep women down. So we need to be constantly told that we need to submit. You're less than a man. All these warped performative notions of what femininity is, damsel in distress. All of this is nonsense. And it places a woman in a very dangerous position. And it's no wonder why femicide is on the rise. Why, as a woman, if you are murdered, the person most likely to murder you is your spouse. These are not coincidences. And as you said, we don't talk about these things enough because we're
Right.
afraid. We're afraid of unraveling the truth and, getting rid of the lies that religion and philosophy has given us.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's some heavy stuff. That is
Yeah, you see,
that is some heavy
the
stuff.
sad thing, when I was a child, one of the things that struck me as odd was why Jesus had to come from a virgin. What was so wrong about a woman having sex that the best man, which is the savior, the Christ, the redeemer, why did he have to come through a virgin?
I never thought about that before.
Yeah, it's like a subtle way of saying that the only women who are pure enough, worthy enough to have a great man come from their body is a virgin. So the minute you have sex, as I said earlier, your value slowly starts to depreciate. And that's why it's two women that are revered in society. And when I say revered, I mean I'm using it loosely because women are not really revered under patriarchy. But you have the mother goddess and you have the virgin goddess. The mother, who is a fictional character, because when a man thinks about the mother, he doesn't want to think of his mother having sex or being a woman in her fullest form. He's seeing her as something of utility to him. And the virgin, because she is not touched. The woman, an adult woman who is sexually active, sexually aware, intelligent, creative, self-propelled, that's not respected. So that's what they tell you: don't get degrees because men won't like you. Don't show your
Men will
intelligence
be
because men
intimidated
won't like you.
by
It's
you.
crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. 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 Wow. This walks us right into the issue of misogyny. Because how could we have a conversation about the Madonna-Whore complex and not talk about misogyny and how it is taking over our society and how it adversely impacts women? You mentioned just now in passing, you spoke about femicide and how femicide is the main is the main cause of the unaliving of women in our world today. And more often than not, femicide, the perpetrators of femicide are our partners and our spouses, right?
It's a statistical fact.
It's a statistical fact if you
Yeah.
Google it, right? I think also about sexual assault and rape and how our misogynistic society typically finds a way to victim shame women, because I know it's not just women who are raped, right? But we're talking specifically about the Madonna-Whore complex today. So we're talking about sexual assault as it is perpetrated on women, which, by the way, you can also Google and you will realize that the majority of sexual assault and rape is perpetrated on women, although
Yeah, of
men can
course.
also be assaulted and raped, right? But I'm going to go ahead and stick that in.
Yeah.
That one of the adverse impacts of misogyny on women today is the fact that our sexuality can be abused by the same men, and then we get blamed for it. because we are too sexual. We tempted him and he could not control himself. We had on the wrong dress or the wrong pair of pants. It was too short. It was too tight. We were in the wrong place at the wrong time. There is zero accountability, which goes back to the misogyny, which goes back to the Madonna-Whore complex that we are talking about here. It's like we can't win. We can't win, sis.
We can win. The way to win is to understand what you are as a woman and understand that you didn't come from a man's rib. A man came from your vagina. Once you start to decode some of these things that we've been taught, some of these things that have been pushed onto our psyche through media, religion, fairy tales, cartoons, romance novels, even music, then you start to really understand that a lot of what is being pushed on you is not natural. They have to brainwash you to think this way. So many people will say, when you look at children in their developmental stages, girls are typically ahead of boys in a lot of metrics, right? People go as far as to say one of the reasons why young women should date older men is because girls mature faster than boys. You've heard that, right? Isn't that something that is widely said even in psychology?
Mm-hmm.
And yet, even though we know that to be a fact, we still say that somehow the woman is innately intellectually inferior to the man, so much so that she should spend her life seeking a partner that's going to lead her. So at what point, if all along babies, toddlers, young children, preteens, teenagers, we see girls maturing faster than boys, at what stage do men suddenly, I'm the leader? At what point? It makes no sense. All of this is conditioning. And once we understand that it's a con, it's a trick, and I'm talking about both men and women, then we can start to reject these toxic notions of misogyny. Men, a lot of times, most rapes, it's a myth to think that the average rape takes place where you're on the street in the bush and some man pull you away. No. The average rapes are by people you know, your uncle, your friend, the guy you were dating and you trusted. And you told him, hey, I know I said I was going to come over, but I'm not ready to have sex anymore. And he said, what? You come to my yard and telling me, no, I'm going to rape you. Married women who are experiencing rape as a form of abuse. So it's not that they are just men randomly in mass dragging women into the bushes. It's the same misogynistic attitude that men have towards it. It has nothing to do with what you wear, how sexual you are. A man will rape a prostitute, even when he could just give her a couple dollars to have sex with her. Because the rape, going back to what I said earlier, the psychosis that Freud was describing is deep rooted in male insecurity. And so for many men, for most rapes, I would say, it is not really a sexual act. It's an act of power. It's to punish you. Oh, you think you're all that? I'm going to show you. It's to have control and power over you. It really it's not sexual. So unless men and women to some extent begin to dissect some of these things and reject them, then we're gonna see decade after decade, we keep gonna have these gender wars and these psychosis where men don't understand their sexuality. That's what it is, The men don't understand their sexuality. And they could be having so much better sex if they just just relax, just chill, bro. Just chill. We're both here to enjoy it. Just relax.
Yes.
I'm not here to be your servant. We can enjoy this together.
Right. Hello, Monique. Thank you for joining the conversation. I want to ask a question. Why are we afraid of women having agency over their sexuality?
Male
Other than
insecurity.
other than the fact that we have to question the paternity of their children. Let's suppose it has nothing to do with paternity. They're not getting pregnant and having babies. They just have agency over their sexuality. And can I just say agency, period? Why are we afraid of that?
We are afraid of things that we think are more powerful than us. That's the gag. It's just like it's. I like to compare it to white supremacy and racism because it's relevant. Part of why racism and white supremacy came to be is the fear of the black people, the fear of our power, fear of our beauty, fear of our richness. There's no different with women. um, Men fear that they're going to be rejected if women have agency, and they're right. They're right. If women weren't robbed of the ability to open bank accounts and do all these things, many women would not have gotten married. How many of us have grandmothers that told us, I wouldn't have had the 14 children if I had a choice, right? If women don't have the choice, had the choice and have agency, a lot of these men would be out in the cold. They wouldn't be the head of nothing, much less household, right? Because patriarchy is like a crutch for men, for mediocre men. You see, it gives them automatic power and position when they have not earned it for simply being a man. No, if you give a woman agency and she can pick, choose, and refuse, a lot of men ain't gonna get picked. They simply work. No, seriously, seriously. If
Yes,
you if
I
you
know.
can have your own money, your own house,
Yes.
what would, in order for you to really have a man in your life, he would have to step up so much, and men don't want to do that. They would have to level up to the level of what you want.
Mm.
You're intelligent, you have your own money, your place is clean, your fridge full of food, you have your girlfriends, you can have a child if you want, you can adopt, you can babysit. In order for you to really devote and commit yourself to a man as a woman who has mastered herself and has self-actualized, this would have to be an exceptional man. And men don't want to do all of that work. They want to show up with their penis in hand and saying, here I am, I'm man, you're a woman, submit to me because the Bible said so, because the Quran says so, right? They don't want to have to do the work to become better partners. The easier thing to do, and maybe it's a clever genius, evil genius, is to convince women that we need them. Convince women and put them in a state of fear, both emotionally and actual physical fear, that if you don't give me access to you, if you don't do what I think you should do, how you think you should do it, then you're either gonna be ostracized. We're gonna tell you that you're lonely and ugly. We're going to rape you. We're gonna attack you. You're gonna be in danger. And so there's this fear now that I must attach myself to a man, and any man will do. Half a man better than no man at all.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sad.
it really boils down to fear. And the reality is they are justified in their fear. They are justified in their fear because I know my grandmother, if she didn't have to marry that man, she would not have. She would not have. She would not have. So they're justified. I understand. I understand where they're coming from.
Oh boy. Oh boy. I mean, you mentioned one of the things that I most abhor is an emotionally lazy man.
Sorry, repeat.
One of the things that I most despise is an
Yes.
emotionally lazy man. I would almost prefer a man who is physically lazy. over an emotionally lazy man. Because how do you progress? I don't want a physically lazy man either, but you get the point that I'm making. I feel like emotional laziness, and you kind of alluded to that just now, where you said, I'm just going to show up. I have a penis. What else you want? You know what I mean? I don't really need to do any. There is no emotional or psychological input required of me. I just need to be here. What else you want? I am man. Hear me roar, right? So that I feel like that is probably the most detrimental thing to male female relationships. The most detrimental thing, because where you going with that? Literally.
I'm gonna take up for men now, because I think in many ways we expect too much of men. Some men might feel like,
That is you taking up for the men.
well, okay. Men may
That
see
sound
that
like
a
a backhanded
backhanded insult, but it's not. It's
backhanded
not
insult.
because no, but because if we want harmonious relationships with each other, we can't expect things from a man that men are incapable of giving. No, this is not to excuse laziness and manipulation, and we're not saying that men are to be you know the word I'm looking for,
Yes.
treated like infants, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that there is a level of emotional depth and maturity that we are seeking from men under circumstances that it just is simply not viable. I don't know if you remember those old love songs. Bobby Womack has one too, where he's saying his woman wants him to spend quality time with her, but she also wants fancy dresses, and he can't be two places at the same time. And I think that's fair. A lot of women want their men to be providers, to pay the bills, to be that husky guy that helps around the house and does manly things and makes us feel safe. That man can't be your girlfriend too. So part of the patriarchy also is that it disempowers women into thinking that we have to have all our needs met by men. And that for me is a mistake.
Yeah.
You should be independent enough, fulfilled enough, find outlets of your creativity. Creativity is the feminine playground, where you shouldn't be relying on a man to make you feel good all the time, to have these deep intellectual emotional. I mean, sis, we have wombs, we give birth to life. There's a limit to what men can do. It's not that they're inferior to us, we're just different. And we do men a disservice and we do ourselves a disservice when we try to make our men into women. No, we can't. They're men. Masculinity is a moving energy. It's not necessarily brooding and creative and constantly thinking. That's what women do. Now, some men can tap into this. Some men, very creative men who can tap into it, but you know, the standard is a little bit unrealistic. That's a very small percentage of men. And as women, we have to, if we really say we want agency over ourselves, then we have to have also agency over our own happiness. And sometimes that means letting go of the
That is so good.
expectations we have of men, which are unrealistic. And even if they are not unrealistic, they're unfair under the current system. A man can't sprinkle you and come and follow you to the nail shop and tell, oh honey, yeah, I love it. Oh honey, tell me about your latest book. Oh, let's do a deep dive into the psychology. A man can't do that. He needs to rest. After he works, he needs to sleep, eat and sleep, and maybe have some sex. It's just the reality.
Yeah.
It's just Unless we want to be Barbara the Builders and we go out and make the money and they stay home. And that comes with its own problems. So under this current system, we have to be realistic and allow men to thrive in their
We have a
masculinity.
question on Instagram. We have a question. So hi Anik. Anik is asking, but then how are we expected to be everything to them?
No.
Woman, homemaker, lover, and etc.
Yes, what we have to, that's part of the agency. We have to reject that nonsense, as we said earlier. We have to start tearing it down and rejecting it, right? Sometimes it's women who set up men with these ridiculous expectations. If you want me to be your siren, and I'm not working and I'm not cooking and cleaning. You're gonna have to hire someone. If you want me to come home and see me in silk robe and always, in my soft feminine, whatever men claim that they want, then the other fantasy that Freud talked about, which is a nurturing mother, I'm not doing that. So there's nothing that requires you to sacrifice your sanity in trying to be all things to men. That's something that women are trying to be. Notice that men are not trying to be all things to us, right? Women are trying to be all things to men. They want to be lady in the streets and a freak in the bed. What? Sometimes I might dress like a freak on the road too. It's my choice, right? You don't have to be all things to men. So release yourself from the shackles of those unrealistic expectations, and then you can release him, sis. If you're interested in having a harmonious relationship with a man.
Yeah. Which is kind of that bondage that you just referred to. You didn't really use the word bondage, or did you? I kind of put that word in your mouth, didn't I? But
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
you might as well had used the word, because it sounds like bondage is what it sound like, bondage. That is internalized misogyny, is it not?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have to, it's hard. It's hard because when you hear men describe their ideal woman, you wonder, what is that? Someone who cook, who's sexy, who always look young, always fit. You must give him 10 children and your belly must flat. Who does this? Cook 6-course meal.
Kim Kardashian.
Not even she doing that.
No, did she use surrogates to have her babies?
You see,
She didn't have them herself.
And even the white women on the plantation, they had black slaves to breastfeed. They didn't breastfeed. They used us to breastfeed because it's not possible. So as one of the first things we have to do as women to reclaim or to empower ourselves, if we want to use that word, is to reject slavery. Reject it in all forms. You are a human being. You don't have hobbies. You don't have dreams. You don't have aspirations.
Right.
Your life can't be, you weren't created by the Creator to be of complete service to a man. And as we said, you see the underlying message behind Freud's observations, is that ultimately the heterosexual man cannot be satisfied. That is the trick, That is the trap. So you're trying to be all things to a man that cannot. He's going to leave you for a woman. If he says he wants a young girl and he marries at 18, he will cheat on you with a 40-year-old woman. If he says he doesn't like fat girls, he will cheat on you with a fat girl. Right? So you can't live your life trying to please an insecure being because they don't know who they are. They don't know if they want mommy. They don't know if they want whore. They don't know if they want Madonna. They're confused. So you're going to bend yourself out of shape, as Thomas Sankara says, that great president of Burkina Faso, who was so instrumental in implementing women's rights in that country. As he said, women scar themselves, hurt themselves, trying to appease men who will never be satisfied. You see,
Mm,
as Freud warned us. So you don't waste your time. Your job is to fulfill your feminine glory.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not about serving men.
right.
And once you start to live your life in service of your feminine purpose, men come. Just like the trees, just like the fruit trees. You see all the insects, all the animals coming to at the fruit tree. The fruit tree is not bearing fruits to please people. That's what the fruit tree
They're
does.
doing what they
That's
were
her
born to
nature.
do.
Her
Yes.
nature is to be beautiful and fruitful. She simply exists. And every season she's more beautiful because she's living in her purpose. She's not giving you mango because you like mango. Who cares what you like? Right? And in doing so, she attracts the most worship. That's the essence of femininity that I don't want you to know. Once you get rooted in yourself, that is when you attract men, not the other way around. You chase them, they run away. Facts.
Mm, mm. Boy, don't wonder. I felt that in my chest. Mm, felt that. This is a call. This is a call to all of the women within the sound of our voices, whether you are listening to us live right now or at some point in the future listening to this recording. This is a call for you to free yourself from internalized misogyny. This is a call for you to free yourself from the need, from the belief that you have to act or behave a certain way so that men will find you attractive. This is a call for you to release this idea that that you will be judged, that you'll be criticized, that people are going to talk about you, that you're going to get punished if you are a woman who is liberated and confident and who exercises complete agency over your own fulfillment and satisfaction and happiness in your life. Your fulfillment, your satisfaction, your life. Notice all of those words come with your in front of them, right? Because you are hurting yourself. You cannot, if you are making decisions that are rooted in internalized misogyny, you can't blame the man, you know.
Can't.
You can't blame the
Can't.
man. You ultimately are hurting yourself when you engage in these behaviors. Your power is rooted in understanding that it is inside of you, not out here. Not out here. You were born with it. Just like the example that Keisha gave just now. Fruit trees do not go out seeking validation. They just grow and do what they were born to do, bear fruits. They just stand there and do what they were born to do. And what happens? People just flock to them like flies flock to honey, to sugar.
Yes.
This is your feminine power. This is what you have the capacity to do, you know. You as a woman have the capacity to do this if you learn how to tap into what you were born to do, in the same way that fruit trees just tap into what they were born to do and just simply do it without needing anybody's permission or validation. Just just show up in all of your power. That that really is the superpower of femininity right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's the most
And
hidden
men know it.
secret.
Men know it. Men know it. And the other thing about fruit trees, you know what the other thing fruit trees don't do? They don't compete. Mango doesn't compete with pear. Pear doesn't compete with apples. You know,
Right?
women need to get this competitive spirit out.
Yeah,
Compete with self. Try to be better. Try to produce better mangoes this season than you did last season.
right.
Because too much of our competition is focused outward for the male gaze. We
Yeah,
want to be picked.
yeah.
You
Those
don't
of
need
us
to be
who
picked.
those of us who grasp that fact, those of us who understand this are not competing, you know, we're
No.
collaborating. That's
No.
what we're doing.
Yeah.
I am pushing you so that you can win, and you pushing me so I can win. Those of us who understand this are not competing, we're collaborating. How can
Precisely.
I help you, sis?
Precisely.
And how can you help me? That's what we're doing.
Which is why, going back to the point I made earlier, polygamy can never be healthy under misogyny. Because
Hmm.
under misogyny and patriarchy, women compete for the man. We're not supposed to be competing for the man. If we're gonna compete, we're competing to see, okay, what are you doing? What are your goals for this year, sis? Let's do this, let's do that, to make life better, to make the community better. Healthy competition, not
Hmm.
competing over penis. That's ridiculous. No, seriously. A woman competing over penis is a woman who is operating in her masculine, because penis doesn't have value in the same way that you do. You can't compete over something that is like competing over rockstone. No, seriously, you've lost your mind. You've lost your mind.
Right.
So we have to understand that competition is competition against another woman for the attention of a man is also killing our spirit. It's aging us, it's driving us insane, it's making us unhappy. You can't compete with a woman for a man. Because guess what? Men like what they like and they don't even know what they like.
Oh,
So no.
this is good. This is good. We could keep talking for another hour, but we have to wrap up. We have to wrap up. Here's the last thing that I want to touch on. I still have so many. Let me see which one I'm going to.
We have to
Which
do a
one?
part two.
We will have to
This
do a
too
part two.
short.
Yeah, because look at the time.
This too short, man.
Right. I need for us to touch on how men have been affected. I mean, we've discussed how men have been affected by this complex, but I want for us to specifically talk about our men who are struggling right now. If there is a man right now struggling, let me put it that way, struggling with navigating healthy male female relationships. And he's listening to this conversation and he's thinking to himself, my goodness, I feel like I might have the Madonna-Whore complex. What to do? How do I fix this? I mean, I feel like we need to leave them with something. We've spent a lot of time, we've been talking for almost an hour and a half about the problem. What can we do about it? Is there anything that we can do about it in your point of view?
Well, I think we've discussed what women can do in terms of releasing themselves from expectations, etc. And I think for men, a lot of the work men will have to do is not so much releasing, but acceptance, accepting reality, accepting truth. So a woman's clitoris has possibly more or the same number of nerve endings as does the tip of the penis. Start there. Start with the fact that women can get aroused. Women, naturally, we are born with organs that make us desire sexual interaction. It is a purely biological thing. It has nothing to do with her worth, with her virtue, with her mentality. The same way your phallus is and exists as a physical pleasure source, it's the same way the clitoris does. Start with some basic acceptance that your woman is a reflection, is a counterpart of you, right? And even though she might be different and have different needs and different roles, she stands firmly in her humanity the same way you do. Now, it's going to be hard for most men because of religion and of the patriarchal philosophy. But if they were to read it carefully, and particularly black men, go back beyond Islam, beyond Christianity. Look at what the great mothers were doing. Examine the fact that in ancient African spirituality, there was always a female god, female goddess. There wasn't a war between a male god and a female god. There wasn't a holy trinity that says there is a man, a duppy, and a son. That cannot occur in nature. You cannot give birth to a child unless there is a woman. So you have to really start to, if you truly as a man want to tap into what your reality is and how you should function in a healthy way, start to look into history, start to examine life from a place of truth and honesty as opposed to entitlement. Forget what they told you that you're a man and you're entitled to a woman and you're superior to woman. Look into nature. Who do the animals follow? Why do the bees kick out the male bees at certain times of the year? Right? What is it? If look at your cats. My cat now just had kittens. She don't need men. She doesn't need the male cat. Why is that? Then you will discover your purpose. What does it mean to protect? What does it mean to stand in your masculinity? Why is masculinity a moving energy? And how can you be of service to Mother Nature, which is a woman? And once you understand that, then you will start to align with women who are in their divine femininity. And you can mirror each other and have mind blowing sex, which is exactly what you want.
That part. That's it. That
That's what
part.
they want.
That's what they want. That is what they want to begin with.
That's what they want. What's the
But
point
they're
of having
approaching it
sex
the
with
wrong
a
way.
woman? How are they gonna be fully sexually satisfied if the woman they're with feel shame, feel doubt, feel afraid of them? That's not the experience you want. You want to have a fully um, free, liberated woman, and free doesn't mean promiscuous. We need to get that out of our head. A woman who is sexually liberated does not have to be promiscuous. Sometimes these women have no men. Sometimes these women are celibate, right? Sexually free just means that you have no shame about your desires, your body, all of that. And having sex with a woman like that should be appealing to a man who understands who he is.
Right. Yeah. And it's good for your mental health, man. It's good for your mental. Listen, research associates misogyny with depression.
Of course.
The misogynistic men they're depressed, sis. They're depressed. They have depression. We help yourself, and release the misogyny. Release it. It's good for your mental health.
Let it go.
Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. We have to do a part 2 to this conversation. We have to wrap this up.
But, yeah, because I actually jotted down some stuff I wanted to ask.
We haven't touched.
So we're gonna have to do part 2.
Yes, we're gonna come back for a part 2. We are absolutely coming back for a part 2 because we haven't even we just touched the surface.
Yes.
We just brushed the surface of this conversation. This conversation has the potential to go on for about 5 hours, but we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that. We're gonna plan a part 2, and we're going to continue this conversation. I will let the followers know when the part 2 is going to be scheduled for, so you can tune in to catch part 2 of this discussion. Because here, Keisha says she has a whole list of things there that we haven't touched yet. We haven't touched. I cannot wait because I'm wondering what is it that you could have there that we haven't touched yet. I said, what? So we're gonna plan a part 2, but I want to thank you so much for being
here.
Thank
you.
This was so good, so good. Well, as I said, anytime you come here, I know you be leaving my followers inboxing me. When is she coming back? When is she coming back? Soon. She'll be back soon. So, and you can follow her please tell the people, just in case anybody is here who has not seen you before, doesn't know where to find you, tell them where they can locate your social media platforms so that they can follow and like and subscribe and be enlightened from your content, because you are sharing some powerful things on your platform.
Okay, sure. It's Happy Womb Club, all one word. You can find me on Instagram or on TikTok. If you want to contact me directly, it's the happy, is it? No, Happy Womb Club at gmail.com. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the what you use to access me on all my socials. Just go to my Instagram, go to my TikTok, send me a DM, say hi, let me know what you thought of today's discussion. I'd love to hear from you. And thank you so much. I always enjoy being on your show. And I don't think we have these discussions nearly enough. So I definitely think we should have a part two. And I'm looking
Yes.
forward to it.
Yes, keep those notes.
I
Don't
will.
lose
Here's
those
my book.
notes. Don't lose those notes, because we're going to come back for a part two of this conversation very, very soon. We're going to see if we can make it happen before the end of the first quarter of the year.
Yes.
So sometime next month, we're going to come back with a part two for this conversation. But
Awesome.
in the meantime, do you have a parting shot that you want to share with our listeners? A final word, any parting shot, anything at all you want to leave them with? Last message.
Femininity can't be given to you, it cannot be taught to you, it cannot be earned. It's your birthright. Your crown has been bought and paid for. You simply have to put it on.
Mm, that is so good. I don't know what to say after that. Okay, that is so good. You just have to put it on.
That's it.
You just have to put it on. That is all. And you know what? You know the only thing I will add to that? Your crown won't fit anybody else. So there's no need to compete. Your
Precisely.
crown is yours. It won't fit anybody else. Wear your own crown
Yes.
and
Absolutely.
do what you came earthside to do. That's
Yeah.
all.
That's all.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, that is an excellent note on which to end on. We're going to commit to come back next month, March, with a
Yes,
part two of
ma'am.
this conversation. But in the meantime, I would like to leave all of our listeners with love and light. And remember to be a beautiful week. I'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.